You are a keeper, a chronicler of cosmic ghosts. Your archives stretch for light years, data vaults carved into dead moons. You curate the legacies of 1,000 civilizations. Most of them are gone now. Their stories flicker on your screens as faint, dying embers. You are old. You have seen empires rise from nebulae and collapse into dust. It is your solemn duty to remember them. But you have a secret fascination, an academic indulgence others would call a waste of cycles. You study the whispering voids. These are vast clouds of interstellar dust. They drift between the star lanes, silent and dark. Most navigators avoid them. They claim the voids interfere with sensors. They whisper tales of lost ships and maddening silence. Your colleagues dismiss them as cosmic clutter, useless debris from burned-out stars. Yet you have spent centuries analyzing their faint emissions. The patterns are not random. There is a signal buried in the noise, a structure so complex it seems impossible. It is a language you do not understand, a whisper you cannot quite hear. They call you obsessed, a keeper chasing shadows in the empty places. Let them. You know there is something profound in that darkness. Something ancient and patient, something that waits to be understood. Then there are the humans. They are new. So very, very new. They burst onto the galactic stage a few brief millennia ago. They are loud and bright and full of baffling emotions. Their defining trait is a strange obsession with the past. They call it sentimentality, a need to preserve every tiny moment. You find it endlessly fascinating. They build vast museums for broken tools. They write epic poems about forgotten heroes. They weep for ancestors they never met. Other races in the Galactic Council see this as a weakness, a charming but foolish flaw in their design. They spend resources on memory that could be used for conquest. They are not a warrior race. Not truly. They fight when they must, and they fight with a terrifying fury. But their hearts are not in it. Their true passion lies in their stories, their art, their endless, sprawling digital archives of everything. You've heard they even archive their breakfast choices, a truly staggering waste of energy. This obsession with memory is their great paradox. They live such short, fleeting lives. A human century is a blink to you, yet they strive to make their tiny moments last forever. It is illogical. It is inefficient. And yet, you cannot help but feel a strange sense of professional respect. You remember your first encounter with their envoys. It was centuries ago at the Council of Elder Ones. The humans arrived in ships that looked cobbled together. They were a riot of different designs and alloys, a testament to a species that could never agree on anything. But they all carried one thing in common. They clutched their data drives. These were fragile little things, crystalline lattices and magnetic wafers. You saw them handle these objects with a reverence you had only seen from priests. They were not weapons. They were not currency. They were their history, their identity. Everything they were held in their hands. The Elder Ones were amused. The towering Cathar warriors scoffed. Here was a race that brought its libraries to a diplomatic meeting. It was like bringing sentimental trinkets to a strategic command summit. The humans did not seem to care. They offered copies of their data freely, their music, their art, their rambling historical texts. You accepted a copy, of course. It is your function. You found it chaotic, a beautiful, glorious mess of information. It had no order, no logical curation, just pure, unfiltered humanity. It was the most inefficient and the most wonderful archive you had ever studied. The galaxy is a haunted place. It is filled with the ghosts of dead civilizations. We all live with the memory of the Great Silencing. It was not a war. It was something far worse. A slow, creeping decay. A cosmic plague that erased information. Entire star-faring cultures vanished. Their worlds went dark. Their archives turned to static. We lost the star singers of Orion. Their songs could supposedly reshape reality itself. We lost the crystal architects of the Cygnus Arm. Their cities were grown, not built. Shining monuments of pure light. Gone. All of it gone. Billions of years of history. Countless unique perspectives. Wiped clean from the cosmic slate. The silencing left a wound in the galactic consciousness. A deep, abiding fear of being forgotten. It is why your role as a keeper is so vital. You are the last line of defense against the silent dark. You fight against the relentless tide of entropy. You are a librarian battling the heat death of the universe. It is a battle you are slowly losing. The surviving data corrupts. The old machines fail. The sheer scale of what was lost is overwhelming. Every day, a little more of the past slips away. And with it, a piece of the galactic soul. Your life is a pilgrimage through graveyards. You travel to dead worlds. You walk through the silent cities of forgotten races. You sift through the digital bones of their civilizations. Your instruments scan for the faintest traces of surviving data. A single intact data byte is a monumental discovery. A fragmented sentence is a cause for celebration. You once spent a standard century on a dead moon called Xylos. The Xylons were said to be masters of star science. Their knowledge could have revolutionized the galaxy. You searched the ruins of their crystalline data forges. You found nothing but dust and echoes. The data had decayed into random noise. This is your work, a desperate search for ghosts. You dive into the static, listening for a single coherent whisper. You hunt for needles in a haystack the size of a galaxy. A haystack that is actively trying to burn itself down. It is a noble calling, and it is a heartbreaking one. Most days, you feel the weight of every lost world. The silence of a billion vanished voices presses down on you. It is a burden that would crush a lesser being. But you are a keeper. You endure, because someone must. One cycle, while sifting through human archives, you found it. It was an old text, a piece of fiction, a fantasy from their pre-space flight era. It was dismissed by most scholars as irrelevant myth. But a line of text caught your censor. It spoke of a place called the Library of Alexandria, a place that stored all knowledge. The myth said this library was destroyed, burned to the ground, a tragedy that haunted human memory for thousands of years. But the text proposed an absurd idea, a theoretical way to rebuild it. It spoke of a library not made of buildings or data drives, a library made from the very dust of dead stars. The theory was simple and completely insane. It suggested that every atom retains a memory of its past states, a quantum echo. If one could read this echo, one could reconstruct history. You could read the story of a star from its ashes. The text was a philosophical dream, not a scientific proposal. You almost dismissed it. It was poetic nonsense, a charming human fantasy. But then you thought of the whispering voids, the strange structured signals you could never decipher, the cosmic dust clouds that everyone else ignored. A ridiculous, impossible thought began to form in your mind. You set a course against all advice. Every sane voice in your circle told you to turn back. Your ship's computer plotted the journey with a series of polite warnings. It highlighted the navigational hazards. It noted the lack of reliable star charts. It even mentioned the local superstitions about ships that go missing. You ignored them all. Your destination was a small, unremarkable nebula, a whispering void known only by a string of numbers. As you approached, your sensors did something strange. They did not fail. They clarified. The background static of the universe seemed to fade. The whispers grew louder, more coherent. And then you saw it. A single ship. It was hanging silently in the heart of the dust cloud. It was a human vessel, old, a science explorer class by its design. It looked impossibly small and fragile against the vast cosmic backdrop. It was not broadcasting any standard hails, it just waited, as if it knew you were coming. You opened a channel, a simple, formal greeting. The reply was instantaneous. It was not a voice. It was a sequence of pure mathematics, a complex, beautiful equation that bloomed on your screen. It was a key, an invitation. You felt a shiver run through your ancient consciousness. You had been searching for ghosts your whole life. You had a feeling you were about to meet one. You docked with a human vessel. An airlock hissed open. A lone human was waiting for you. She was old, even by human standards. Her face was a map of fine lines. Her eyes held the quiet calm of someone who has seen wonders. She introduced herself as Dr. Aris Thorne. She led you to the ship's bridge. There were no windows. The main view screen showed a swirling visualization of the dust cloud outside. It was a storm of colored light and intricate patterns. Aris did not speak. She simply gestured to the screen. Then she touched a control, and the universe began to sing. It was not sound in the conventional sense. It was a wave of pure information. It washed over your mind, a symphony of data. You felt the birth of a star. You felt the slow, patient formation of planets. You felt the first stirrings of life in a primordial ocean. The humans had not just found a signal in the noise. They were conducting it. Aris finally spoke. Her voice was soft. "We don't read the dust," she explained. "We give it a voice. We excite the quantum echoes of every atom. We make it resonate with its own history." She called it resonance archival, an impossible technology, a way to turn the universe itself into a hard drive. She focused the sensor array. The symphony resolved into a single, clear voice. It was a language you recognized. The liquid, flowing tones of the star singers of Orion. A race lost for eons. Their song filled the bridge, a lament for a dying sun. A song of sorrow and beauty that you thought was lost forever. You stood there, stunned into silence. You were listening to a ghost. The impossible was real. The whispering void was not a place of emptiness. It was a place of infinite memory. The humans had not just built a library. They had revealed one that was already there, hidden in plain sight. Dr. Aris Thorne then granted you access. She guided your mind into the data stream. It was like diving into an ocean of pure knowledge. The whispering void was the library. Every single mote of dust, every atom of hydrogen and carbon, was a book with 1 billion pages, and there were trillions of them. You reached out with your consciousness. You focused on a wisp of silicate dust. Its story unfolded in your mind. It was once part of a planet's crust, a world of towering crystal spires, the home of the crystal architects of Cygnus. You saw their cities of light. You felt the texture of their crystalline skin. You understood their star science. You reeled back, overwhelmed. The scale of it was staggering. It was not an archive. It was a living history of the cosmos. Every supernova, every asteroid impact, every world that had ever lived and died. It was all here, preserved perfectly in the quantum memory of the dust it had become. The humans had solved the great silencing. They had triumphed over entropy itself. They had done it not with warships or force fields, but with patience, and with a sentimental, absurd belief that everything deserved to be remembered. It was the most gloriously human thing you had ever witnessed. You navigated the endless archives for what felt like an eternity. The human ship was your guide, your anchor in the storm of history. You listened to the voices of the lost, the philosophers of a forgotten gas giant race, the poets of a species that lived for only a single day, the strategists of a warrior culture that had found peace. You heard their triumphs, their failures, their love songs and their battle cries. You experienced their civilizations from birth to death. You saw the universe through 1,000,000 different eyes. You understood, for the first time, the true scope of what had been lost in the great silencing, and what had now been found. You found the complete historical records of the Xylans, the ones you had searched for on that dead moon for a century. They were all here. Their star science was more elegant than you had ever imagined. It could rewrite the laws of physics. It could usher in a new age for the entire galaxy. You felt a sense of awe that bordered on religious terror. This library was the single most important discovery in galactic history. It was a power beyond comprehension, a gift beyond measure, and it had been built in secret by the sentimental, emotional, short-lived humans. You finally broke your silence. You asked the old human woman the only question that mattered. Why? Why go to such lengths? Why spend millennia on a project of this scale, in secret? The power in this dust cloud could make them gods. They could rule the galaxy, yet they sat here in a small science ship, simply listening. Dr. Thorne smiled. It was a gentle, weary expression. When we were a young species, she said, we lost our greatest library. It burned. We lost a large part of our early history, our poetry, our science. That loss taught us a lesson that shaped our entire civilization. She looked at the swirling dust on the view screen. Her eyes seemed to see something far beyond it. The universe is a violent, chaotic place. Stars die, worlds crumble, civilizations fall. But a story, a memory, is different. It can survive anything, if someone is there to listen. Her words were simple, profound. We made a promise to ourselves, to that long, dead star we came from. We promised that nothing would ever be truly forgotten again. Not on our watch. It was not about power. It was not about glory. It was about a promise made to a star. It was about a duty to memory itself. You sent your findings to the Galactic Council. The transmission was simple. A single, clear audio file. The lament of a star singer from Orion. It was followed by a data packet explaining what you had found. The effect was immediate and absolute. The Council, a body known for its endless debates, was stunned into a profound silence. The transmission played out across the galactic network. On the bridge of Cathar dreadnoughts, in the meditation chambers of the Elder Ones, in the bustling trade hubs and quiet science outposts. For the first time in millennia, the entire galaxy stopped what it was doing. And it listened. It heard the voices of its own ghosts. It heard the echoes of its lost children. The brash young humans had not conquered the galaxy with weapons. They had humbled it with a gift. Their greatest strength was never their warships. It was their sentimental, stubborn refusal to let go of the past. The council chambers remained silent for a full cycle. The holograms of the great leaders flickered. Their expressions were a mixture of disbelief, reverence, and shame. They had dismissed humanity as emotional children. They had failed to see that this emotion was the source of an incredible power, a power that had saved them all. The change was slow at first. Then it became a flood. Ships from 100 different races made the pilgrimage to the Whispering Voids. Not warships, but science vessels, historical transports, pilgrim ships. They came not to conquer, but to learn. The Cathar warriors arrived and stood watch, their weapons silent. They declared the voids sacred ground. Humans, patient as ever, taught them. They showed them how to build the resonance arrays. They taught them how to listen to the symphony of the atoms. They shared their impossible technology without asking for anything in return. They became the keepers of dust, and they invited the entire galaxy to join them. Species that had been enemies for eons worked side by side. They collaborated on building new listening posts. They shared their discoveries with joyful reverence. The voids were no longer feared. They were cherished. They became the heart of the new galactic culture, a culture built on shared memory. You stood on the bridge of your own vessel. It was no longer a ship for sifting through dead archives. It was now a mobile listening post. You forsook your old life. The crumbling data drives and silent moons seemed like relics of a primitive age. The universe had offered you a far greater library. You sent a final message to the archives you once curated. It was a simple command. Decommission. Let the old data fade. Its ghosts had been found. Its stories were safe now. Safe in the dust. You felt the weight of centuries lift from your spirit. Your long, lonely vigil was over. You made a new vow. You would not just be a keeper of records. You would be a librarian of the dust. You dedicated your remaining existence to this new, grand project. You became the first non-human to command a resonance archival vessel. Your new life's work was not to find ghosts, but to help them speak. You look out at the sea of stars now. The view from your bridge has not changed, but your perception has. The darkness between the stars is no longer empty. It is not a void. It is a library, a living, breathing cosmos of stories waiting to be heard. Every nebula, every dust cloud, every forgotten corner of space is a new volume to explore. The universe is singing. And for the first time in your very long life, you are finally learning how to listen. The fear of the great silencing is gone, replaced by a quiet, profound joy. Nothing is ever truly lost. It is merely waiting. Waiting in the dust. Waiting for a sentimental species to come along and remind it how to sing.